Dear friends, I welcome you to my channel. This is Berezovets. Today we will talk about important news. Starting today in particular, the main scandal reported by the Wall Street Journal states that the well-known entrepreneur, billionaire, and the richest businessman in the United States, Elon Musk, maintains regular contacts with Putin and communicates with representatives of his administration. In particular, with the first deputy head of the presidential administration, Kirienko, Dmitry Peskov, the spokesperson for Putin, immediately rushed to refute this information, which only reminds us of a well-known truth. The Kremlin protects its most valuable agents first and foremost, as we remember. The Central Bank of Russia raised the key interest rate by 200 basis points to 21%. This means that things in the Russian economy are getting worse and worse. This is a record indicator since February 2022. President Zelensky pointed to the door for Antonio Guterres. He will not come to Kiev. In 2022, President Zelensky showed the door to UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres in Kiev. He will not come as he is considered a persona non grata by the UN Secretary General. It was named in Israel. The European Union reacted to the news regarding the deployment of North Korean troops to participate in the war against Ukraine, and warned the DPRK against such actions. The worst for Putin and Kim is that it has infuriated the leader of China, Xi Jinping. What the Financial Times is writing, Beijing is very unhappy about it. DPRK, North Korea, with Moscow. According to the agreement between China and North Korea, if the DPRK, North Korea army enters the war, China will have to defend it. This agreement to defend, of course, has driven them into a frenzy. The main person in China, Sersky, today refuted another fake claim by Putin that 2,000 Ukrainian soldiers are allegedly surrounded in the Kursk region. The dictator made this statement the day before. The International Criminal Court is set to hold Mongolia accountable for violating the Rome Statute for failing to arrest Putin during his visit to the country a month ago. Putin unexpectedly announced his readiness for negotiations with Ukraine. This was also confirmed by Turkish leader Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who just returned from Kazan today. The far eastern regions of Russia, as well as the Urals and Siberia, are also mentioned. They are preparing for attacks by Ukrainian drones. It is so bad for our opponent, South Korean intelligence reported. North Korean military personnel have been sent to Russia. In response, NATO may increase military support for Ukraine. We will discuss all of this further. The conservative American publication Wall Street Journal, close to the Republicans. The head of SpaceX and Tesla, Elon Musk, has a regular communication channel with the Russian dictator Putin since the end of 2022. At the same time, it refers to, according to both Russian and American sources, including reports from Russian intelligence officials, Musk communicates with Putin on personal topics, business, and geopolitical issues. Musk has access to state secrets. He is in close contact with representatives of American intelligence agencies and the Pentagon. This puts pressure on the Biden administration. But they did not make any remarks to Elon Musk. They did not make any remarks personally to Elon Musk. Despite the sensitivity surrounding the fact that Elon Musk may be discussed by Putin, sources in the White House only have a general idea and are very much on edge about the possibility that Elon Musk might say something inappropriate. Political scientist Ian Bremmer from the United States reported that Elon Musk began publicly communicating with the Russian dictator in October 2022, as informed by Elon Musk himself. Yes, the billionaire is very talkative, rich, successful, but not very smart, which he has repeatedly confirmed in public discussions. And the way he behaves is like a teenager, posting silly posts on his own social network. Moreover, Putin discussed possible nuclear strikes with Elon Musk during their conversation. Agree that this clearly goes beyond the usual business communication, politics, especially that of a dictator like Putin. And Putin engages in such conversations quite openly. Musk himself publicly admitted that he communicated with Putin only once. Allegedly, this happened in April 2021, and they discussed space, 2 astronauts, a joint flight to Mars, space, the largest private company, who to communicate with the dictator Putin, a representative of that country. He has already sent his ships into space, and this is the largest private company, SPX, which organizes such flights. Naturally, who else to communicate with but the dictator Putin, the representative of the country that was the first to send a human into space? Elon Musk has reverence and psychological complexes. He has expressed this repeatedly, demonstrating servility before Putin and Russia. This type of communication is characteristic of Elon Musk. The type of communication characteristic of Musk is characteristic of Musk throughout his public life. Where does a person born in a free country come from? Such servility and a completely distorted understanding of the history of Russia in particular. His conviction that Crimea was never Ukrainian, that Russia has always been great, about the fact that Russia has never lost a war. It also reminds me of another well-known character from the USA who regularly expresses similar thoughts, and who could even become the President of America for a second time. What do you think, friends? Share your opinion below this blog. Meanwhile, according to the Wall Street Journal, Musk has started communicating with Putin's entourage, with the first deputy to the president, Sergei Kiriyenko. This was reported by various publications, including former representatives. The topics of communication between Kiriyenko and Elon Musk are unknown. The Kremlin has pressured Musk. In May 1924, the head of Roscosmos, Dmitry Rogozin, wounded in the buttocks. Well, he got hit. During one of the shellings, he wrote about it himself. I didn't make this up. Wounded in the backside, Rogozin stated that Elon Musk would have to take adult responsibility for the Pentagon, allegedly providing Starlink communication systems to Azov in Mariupol. At the end of 2023, a former employee of the Russian intelligence services stated that Putin had approached Elon Musk with a request not to activate the Starlink satellite internet service over Taiwan. Allegedly, this is very significant. It will flatter the ego of Chinese leader Xi Jinping. However, it is unknown whether this request was conveyed by Xi Jinping through Putin, or if it was his private, personal initiative. However, the Chinese embassy in Washington reported that he is not aware of such information, and naturally they will not comment on anything. There is nothing surprising about that. Returning to Sergei Kiriyenko, he is known as the curator, the key curator appointed by Putin for the restoration of new territories. They refer to new territories, which are actually occupied territories of Ukraine, namely Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, Zaporizhzhia regions, and the Autonomous Republic of Crimea. He is building everywhere there. Roads, museums, enterprises, factories, hubs. It opens up cultural space, etc. This is what Kiriyenko is engaged in. And he acts like that type. Like a cool, advanced, enlightened leader. Kinder surprise. I remind you, that was his nickname back in the day, when he was prime minister under Boris Yeltsin. However, it was a short period. Kiriyenko is known as a person for whom Putin has a special fondness. He is a follower, referring to Kiriyenko, of the sect of methodologists. There are such characters. Shkedrovitsky, a Russian political technologist. That is, he draws his resources from there. It's a very interesting field. Read up on it. Google who the methodologists are. Musk refused to comment on the publication by the Wall Street Journal. Musk criticized the Biden administration. The Wall Street Journal reported that Musk, during his communications with Putin, criticized the Biden administration for military aid to Ukraine. And he continued to communicate with him for a total of 24 years. This means that there is a chance he continues to communicate with him to this day. I remind you that Elon Musk is very close to the Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump. At the very least, questions about Musk should have arisen for the American intelligence agencies. I will repeat what I started with. He has access to government officials and has connections with the top figures of the American intelligence services at the Pentagon. Naturally, Peskov rushed to clean up the situation. Usually, he does not deny it. I quote, false information. Published in the Wall Street Journal. Putin communicated with Elon Musk only once before 2022. He does not deny it. He stated, I quote, no, it is all untrue, absolutely false information published in the Wall Street Journal. Peskov also stated that Putin communicated with Musk only once before 2022. Allegedly, they communicated by phone. They talked about technologies. That was the only contact. After that, there were no further contacts. The only contact regarding economic development was the only one. After that, there were no contacts between Elon Musk and Putin. All claims to the contrary are false. I will repeat once again, when a speaking mouth starts to deny something. A clear signal. There is no smoke without fire. This means that something was and is happening. I will repeat once more that in 2024, according to the data from WDGO November scale, they continue to communicate. Economic news. The Central Bank of Russia has raised the key interest rate to 21%. This is a signal that inflation is starting to accelerate in Russia. The Central Bank of Russia does not rule out that a decision will be made to raise the key interest rate. This indicator determines how much money is worth in the Russian economy. When the rate is raised, the Central Bank of Russia makes deposits for Russians more attractive, while loans become more expensive, reaching up to 20%. It was reduced to 17% and remained at that level until July 2023. Since the end of July, it has started to increase. For the invasion in February 22, it was then lowered to 17 and then to 7.5%, and it remained at that level until July 23rd, after which it began to increase at the end of July. And this is a record figure. And I will repeat, they are not final. They may be raised further. This clearly indicates that Nabiullina is slowly starting to lose control of the situation. More precisely, control over this situation. What she managed to achieve, as reported by the Western press. Putin's key banker who finances his war is gradually starting to lose ground. This marker is extremely important for us. Meanwhile, after Antonio Guterres' arrival in Kazan, Zelensky rejected Antonio Guterres' visit to Kyiv. This was reported by France Press. Reason: Antonio Guterres' participation in the BRICS summit in Kazan. Prior to this, a persona non grata was announced in Israel. Unprecedented decision. Unprecedented. Secretary General of the UN. General Staff of non grata. UN participant. For expressing sincere and heartfelt condolences as a result of the elimination of terrorist leaders. Not condemning terrorist acts against peaceful Israelis. Well, actually, now it's already his. Fate has caught up with him. Now he won't come to Ukraine. Well, actually, they haven't announced a personal date yet. By the way, I mentioned the day before that there should have been a reaction to such an outrageous decision. Well, he has to communicate with all the major states. He even talked to the self-proclaimed president there. Consider him an imposter, Lukashenko. And I went to the war criminal Putin, who is wanted not just by some Ukrainian court. Not Ukrainian. I am not the prosecutor of Ukraine. The International Criminal Court in The Hague has issued a warrant for his arrest, and here is what the Secretary General is doing. I think he will now try to maneuver, attempting to negotiate with Ukraine both publicly and privately. However, he has been dealt a diplomatic blow. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine condemned Antonio Guterres' public visit. They called it a wrong choice, since he accepted an invitation to Kazan from the war criminal Putin, and he is harming the reputation of the UN. The problem for Antonio Guterres is just beginning. Meanwhile, the International Criminal Court is looking for a way to punish Mongolia. The leadership of this country, they have already moved into practical terms. This is not just about condemnation. Legal proceedings have already begun. This is all serious. So, the International Court in The Hague has referred the case of Mongolia to the countries participating in the Rome Statute due to the refusal to arrest the war criminal Putin. According to the ICC's decision, Mongolia, by not arresting Putin, did not fulfill the request for cooperation, which contradicts its obligations. She signed the Rome Statute, according to a statement from the pre-trial chamber of the court. It is also reported that the punishment for Mongolia is not yet clear, but it will happen. This is because it was Rome Statute of the internationally recognized and notorious active military war criminal. He is accused of the complete illegal abduction of Ukrainian children and their transportation to territories not controlled by Ukraine. Everything is just beginning. The situation is beginning to develop regarding military cooperation between Russia and the DPRK, North Korea. European Union expresses deep concern. Well, don't laugh, but I'm really doing it. Once again. Due to reports that the DPRK, North Korea, is sending military personnel to participate in the war on the side of Russia against Ukraine, the European Union warned that if such actions are confirmed, it will be perceived as a unilateral hostile act by the DPRK, North Korea, with serious consequences for peace and security. This was stated by the High Representative of the EU for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Josep Borrell. The involvement of the DPRK, North Korea, in the war would constitute a serious violation of international law, including the most fundamental principles of the UN Charter. Arms supplies grossly violate numerous Security Council resolutions. The European Union calls on the DPRK, North Korea, to cease support for illegal activities and is developing countermeasures with international partners. But while they are developing and thinking, China will not consult with anyone, and it will act on its own. It has long been known that China and its leader Xi Jinping are furious about the development of cooperation between Moscow and Pyongyang. I recorded a blog about this. About a month and a half ago, I detailed that the Federal Tax Service, FNS, wrote extensively about the growing aggressiveness of the Kim Jong-un regime, noting that this increasing aggressiveness greatly irritates China, its main sponsor and protector. The reason is that Putin demonstratively, in a boyish manner, shows that he collaborates and mocks directly, because supposedly what North Koreans... Well, yes, and then they themselves hang up the DPRK North Korea flag. Or they do everything to make it seem like they are getting the most out of it. They will publicize the video. Again, this is all done by the Russians themselves. They intend to provoke, to show. So, what will you do to us? Beijing is not pleased with this situation at all. This concerns cooperation, including in the nuclear field. Naturally, Russia is passing on its knowledge. Beijing, not necessary. Done by senior partner. China is linking agreement with DPRK, North Korea. Maybe this should be done by the senior partner. Naturally, when Russia got involved in this. Furthermore, China has an agreement that ties it to the DPRK, North Korea, and China may be drawn into a military conflict because there is a military alliance agreement under which China is obligated to defend the DPRK, North Korea, which could become a legitimate target for Ukraine and also for the West. If the Americans warned that they might strike the DPRK, North Korean military themselves, such threats are being voiced. Furthermore, China is very concerned that this will lead to an inevitable increase in cooperation between Ukraine and South Korea, as well as Japan, which are geopolitical adversaries of Beijing. And China is very concerning, as it will strengthen the cooperation of these countries with Ukraine. Furthermore, the role of the United States on the Korean Peninsula and in the region as a whole is significant. In other words, the Americans will take advantage of this situation for China, which calculates the situation several years ahead. They understand that this situation, this decision by Putin, creates enormous problems for Beijing in the future. Naturally, they would like to avoid this. And this is Putin's key blunder, because he is allowed to meddle with his vassal through the head of China, and he thinks that all of this will pass for him without consequences. No, it won't pass, and there will be consequences. Putin, speaking on the eve, voiced another piece of disinformation that allegedly in the Kursk region, without specifying where, 2,000 Ukrainian soldiers are supposedly surrounded, and he said that attempts are being made to break through from the inside and outside. We are destroying them, eliminating them. All of this, of course, is happening. Naturally, everyone rushed to find out more. Of course, nothing of the sort was found, and there are no confirmations. And today, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Oleksandr Syrsky, stated that this is all disinformation. The statement released by the head of the aggressor country, Monsamiti BRICS, regarding the encirclement of Ukrainian troops in the Kursk region, is not true. This is blatant disinformation. The occupiers are suffering significant losses in personnel and military equipment. Naturally, none of this is true. This is yet another lie from the bunker grandpa who has come out with it. Once again, trying to convince us that the situation is as he says. And you know what's the funniest part? I even think that no, Nikonoshenkov wrote this for him. He just came up with it himself. Such an impromptu thing. He loves to inflate such matters. He thinks it's a very smart decision. In other words, he created this fake on the fly. Putin recently stated that Ukraine officially attempted in an effort to negotiate the start of potential peace talks. Erdogan stated that Putin wants to end the hostilities in Ukraine. Just like Vladimir Zelensky, we have confirmed that Mr. Putin is also striving for a sustainable ceasefire. The meeting in Istanbul was confirmed by the foreign ministers of Russia and Turkey, Hakan Fidan and Sergei Lavrov. He also discussed the exchange of prisoners with Putin. Questions regarding the restoration of the grain corridor were raised, and the demining of the Black Sea. We are not ready to seek compromises. It is reasonable to go for compromises. We wanted to negotiate through Turkey, then everything was withdrawn, and now they say, we are not ready to seek compromises. I am quoting this, we are ready to go for compromises reasonably. I don't want to go into details because there are no direct negotiations. Again, another round of disinformation from the bunker. He claims to be ready for something. In reality, he is not. He is trying to buy time. It is critically important for him to carry out additional mobilization. They sharply raised the cost of the contract, and the increase he is counting on is rapid. To reinforce the unit with new personnel, to achieve more significant territorial acquisitions before the onset of cold weather, by capturing new territories in Ukraine. This is what it entails. We do not observe any preparations for negotiations. This is purely a tactical attempt to buy time and deceive, as always. Meanwhile, Russian regions, particularly the Far East, Ural and Siberia, have sharply increased their spending on equipment purchases. Drones are 22 times more than in 2023. Ukraine is preparing for strikes with the help of drones, long-range ones, that will reach areas thousands of kilometers away from Ukraine. This is pleasing to hear. And they are preparing for Ukraine to start striking Russia with long-range drones that will now reach regions located thousands of kilometers away from the border with Ukraine. For us, this information is certainly pleasing to hear, and all. We have hope for the strengthening of the air defense system. Let them indeed spend. Let them be afraid. Let them prepare. South Korean intelligence has confirmed the dispatch of the second group of North Korean military personnel to Russia. Bloomberg reports that NATO is preparing to respond to this significant increase in military support. Bloomberg also refers to intelligence data, stating that the arrival of 10,000 troops from the DPRK, North Korea, is planned. The first group of 1,500 Special Forces fighters is already undergoing training in the Far East. According to intelligence, the DPRK, North Korea, has sent 8,122,000 and 152mm shells to Russia, along with 100 Hwasong-11 missiles. Anti-tank weapon Bullseye 4. This exceeds the assessments from European sources that were made earlier. And in response to this is a serious challenge. Mike Turner, chairman of the Congressional Committee. The increase in serious military support is a serious challenge. Mike Turner, chairman of the Congressional Committee on Intelligence, demands that the Biden administration respond decisively, including militarily, in a direct military manner, strike specifically against the grouping of DPRK, North Korea, military forces. If they find themselves in Ukraine, that is, not in Russia, if they find themselves in Ukraine, in the Kupiansk territories, he believes that the Americans should deliver this strike, but this is the position of a separate Republican commissioner. Biden may have 76 days to revise military strategy and to significantly increase support. The 77 days that Biden can use are specifically for revising his own military strategy and for seriously addressing support, including a military response to all these provocations from Putin and others. Such are our friends for this evening's news. Thank you for watching this video and for your comments, likes, and shares, and most importantly, for your subscriptions. We have just a little bit left to go. There are already about 18,000 there, up to 1 million, a good pace of subscriptions. Thanks to your activity, let's keep it up. Take care, friends. Quiet. This was Taras Berezovets with you. Until we meet again. I brought words to the Ukrainian Special Forces. You were with Major of the Ukrainian Army Taras Berezovets. Friends, until we meet again. Goodbye.